Hi students, I am Kashish and in this lecture we'll continue our second chapter that we began in the last lecture, that is Marie Curie, A Radiant Life. So students, in our last lecture we completed half of the chapter where we saw that how Marie and Perry worked day and night in order to achieve or in order to get success in their research, and then finally they announced the discovery of two elements in the year 1898, one in July 1898, and they named that element polonium, and the second element was discovered in the year 1898 in December, and they named that element radium. And then in purifying that radium they really worked hard and they finally achieved the outstanding result, and which is considered to be one of the magnificent discovery in modern science, as this radium really helps helps in curing the disease called cancer, which is a dangerous disease for a human being. So, and then we also saw that how Perry was discussing with his wife that either they had two choices, either to describe the result of their research without keeping anything to themselves, that like how they purified the radium, and the another choice was, let's be the proprietor of and the inventor of the radium and keep the patent and the technique of and the manufacture of the radium to themselves and earn money. And to which Perry directly straight away refused, and let's see what happens. Let's look on page number 35 and see what Perry has to say after Mary rejected or refused Perry's idea of keeping the patent or the formula and the technique to themselves. So then Perry replies that if they in the sense Mary and Perry, they remain the proprietors or the owners, or you can say they keep the patent and the technique of how they purified the radium to themselves, so they could have a fine laboratory too. So here the Perry is trying to tell Mary that if they keep the patent to themselves, so they can become rich, and then in future they will have a good laboratory to work in, as now they were working in a small little shabby kind damp storeroom, and they made that storeroom as a laboratory. So here the Perry is trying to convince Mary that if we become the proprietor, or if we keep the patent to ourselves, then we would become we would have enough money to get fine laboratory. To this, Mary was stunned, and then she replied that physicists always publish their research completely, like whatever they research they always publish it and they disclose everything to people. And then she went on saying that if our discovery, if their discovery, Mary and Perry's discovery of radium, has a commercial future, commercial future here refers to if it has a commercial future, in future if it can become a source of earning money, or it can earn lots of money in the market too, then that is an accident by which we must not profit. So she is telling if our research becomes a commercial future, then too we should not try to earn profit out of this. And on the other hand, she says that if radium is going to be used in treating disease, as it was already mentioned, that the purified radium can be used to cure the cancer. So she says that if the radium is going to be used for treating the disease, then she's telling that it is impossible to take advantage. So she's here is trying to tell Perry that it is impossible, and she's not going to keep the things up to herself. She's going to disclose the reports that how they did the research, and she is not going to take advantage of the situation in order to earn money, or she is telling it is impossible for her to take advantage of the situation in order to get in order to earn money or for her own benefit. So then Perry and Mary, they both finally decided, had in conversation, and they both decided that they will disclose how they did the research. And then After this, Perry and Mary moved to get woods on their beloved bicycles. Both owned a bicycle, and then after the discussion, they went to get some woods for like burning, so they can use it for in their home for like burning the. They also need wood in the laboratory as well in order to burn the fire, and apart from that they also need wood, like Mary needed wood in her household activity in order to burn fire and cook on it. So they both left on their beloved cycle and went to get the wood. And this also shows that how simple life they used to live, and like they did not earn enough money, and this shows that they went daily went out to get wood in order to burn the fire. So this shows that they always struggled between poverty and fortune. And then in evening they came back exhausted, with their arms filled with leaves and filled flowers. So then on December 10, 1903, you can say a miracle happened, or you can say the fortune or the fate of Mary and Perry turned, as the Academy of Science of Scotland announced that the Nobel Prize in Physics for the current year was awarded half to Henry Becquerel and half to Monsieur and Madame Curie for their discoveries in radioactivity. So this was actually a very good news for them, as the Academy of Science declared them as a Nobel Prize winner for physics of the year 1903. So what is actually a Nobel Prize? Nobel Prize is an international prize award that is annually given by the Nobel Foundation for outstanding achievement in the field of physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine or literature. And this is like a award of the highest rank, and this is a very noble award. So when they and in the year 1903, they were like it was announced that Mary and Perry Curie will be getting this award for their discovery in radioactivity. This Monsieur and Madame Curie is actually a French name for gentleman. Monsieur is what you call in French for to a man or a gentleman. So let's mention that. And then getting a Nobel Prize means getting 70,000 gold francs. Now what is franc? Francs is actually a former unit of currency of France. Like in India we have rupees. So similarly in France they had francs, but now it's replaced by euro. So they received 70,000 gold francs as a prize money. And then they had loans to be repaid, which they took from Perry's brother. Then the loan was taken from Mary's sister as well, as we already discussed that they had financial difficulties and they had to survive even for the basic needs. So they took loan. They had already the loan was taken from Perry's brother, Mary's sister. So when they received 70,000 gold francs, they tried to repay those loans. Then they made some donations to scientific societies. Then they gifted few students some gifts. And then Mary also gave gifts to her childhood friend. And then after doing all this, Mary finally installed a modern bathroom in her little house and repapered a shabby room. Now repapered is like putting up a new wallpaper. So she finally renovated her home and installed a modern bathroom after winning the prize money. But amidst of all this, she again forget to buy a new hat. Now here the line is, but it never entered her head to mark the occasion by buying a new hat. So Mary used to wear a black color kind of an hat which was really worn out, and in spite of winning the prize money, she used the money to repay the loan or to give donations and gift and to renovate her home. But she did not buy a new hat for herself. So this again shows that she led a very simple life, and she did not like wanted a luxurious things in her life, and this is a perfect example which shows that how simple Mary was. Then like they kept themselves away from the limelight, as winning a Nobel Prize is a great achievement for a person who wins it. So they both like Mr. and Mrs. Curie, or you can say Mary and Perry Curie, they both were in the limelight and fame, but they soon resumed the routine of the school and laboratory, like then again went back to their own work, like going to school and going to a university to teach and then carrying out the research. And unfortunately, on Thursday, 16th April 1906, a very heart-wrenching incident took place, and it was around 2:30 p.m. when it was a very hot and humid kind of a climate, and it was a rainy day, and Perry left the university by 2:30, and in order to cross the road, accidentally he came, or like you can say came across a path of a heavy dray, or you can say like a dray is actually a small, or you can say a flat kind of a vehicle which has a horse drawn over it in order to like carry the heavy loads. So this was used in past. So unfortunately like Perry came into the path of this heavy dray, and he lost his life on that particular moment. And this was a very sad incident that took place in Mary's life. And then after the funeral of Perry, the government officially proposed to award Mary a pension. A pension is something which the government gives to the family of the deceased person, in order to, like, if the person is an honorable person of the country and if he dies, so the government tries to give certain amount per month to the family of the deceased or the person who has died. So but Mary flatly refused this, or flatly refused taking pension, and she said that I am young enough, I can earn my living and I can like take care of my children, so I did not want any such pension from government. And this again shows that how independent Mary was and how brave Mary was. Then later on, the Council of Faculty of Science, they had a discussion in the group, and they finally decided to entrust is like to trust the person for taking care of. So they finally decided to entrust Perry's post, as the Perry was professor at Sorbonne University, from where Mary earned her master's degree, in the same university Perry used to teach. So the Council of the Faculty of Science finally decided to give the Perry's post to Mary, and this was again a very important part, as this was the first time a position in French higher education or any of the French university had been given to a woman, and Mary became the first women lecturer, or you can say professor of French university. So this was again a very great achievement for Mary. And on the day of her first lecture, the amphitheater, now amphitheater is kind of in like auditorium or area where there are the sittings arrangement are made all around the room. So the amphitheater was packed, and packed in the sense it was full with people and the students and the other member of the university. And when Mary walked in, there was a storm of applause. Now applause means you actually praise person publicly by clapping hands. So there was a storm of applause, and when she entered, everyone started clapping. She put her head down, like head down in the sense she bent her head and waited for the ovation to stop. Ovation is like when the audience appreciates someone by clapping continuously. So she waited for the ovation to stop, and when people stopped their like applause, then she started straight ahead, and she did not waste her time talking about anything else, and she directly went on with the lecture, saying, when one considers the progress that has been made in physics in the past 10 years, one is surprised at the advance that has taken place in our ideas concerning electricity and matter and so on. So this shows that how passionate she was to her work, and she did not like to waste much time, and once people stopped applauding her, she straight away started with the lecture. And then Marie Curie continued the course which the Marie Curie was teaching at the university, at the precise sentence, like exactly the sentence accurately where Marie Curie stopped his lecture. From that particular point, Marie Curie started delivering the lecture at that university, and she, at that moment, she became very emotional, because it was very difficult for her, as she took his husband's post and he was no more with her. And we already know how supportive Marie Curie was, and how he helped Mary to carry on the research and so on. So this was a very emotional moment for Mary, and then tears came into her eyes, and it rolled down over her cheeks and face. So this was an emotional moment for Mary. Now turn the page, look on page number 36. Then it shows that after becoming a lecturer at Sorbonne University, getting a Nobel Prize, Mary's personal fame was day by day rising. Here the word is written Madame Curie mounted. So fame of Madame Curie mounted. To mounted here basically means to rise. So day by day Madame Curie was getting famous, and her fame was rising, and she was getting famous among people, and her all the activities and her achievements were spreading like a bursting rocket. And soon Sweden awarded her the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the year 1911. So students mark, in the year 1903, she, along with her husband, received a Nobel Prize for their discoveries in radioactivity. And then in the year 1911, Sweden awarded her the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So this was again one of the great achievement of her life, as till date, no other man or woman has ever received the prize for the two different subjects. So this was something to be we should all something Mary should be proud of, as she was now the owner of the Nobel Prize for two different subjects. One was for physics, for her discoveries in radioactivity, and another one is for chemistry. So this was one of the most important event in her life. And this is how things went on in her life. She was continuously surrounded by the fame, and the fame she received because of her work, her research, and her passion towards her work. And then finally, to the end of her life, Mary continued her work with passion and dedication. Throughout her life, she was completely dedicated in the research work, and she spent most of her time in the laboratory. And on Friday, 6th July 1934, the Mary Curie left the world, and because of aplastic anemia, and the doctor said that it was because of her high exposure to the radioactivity, or you can say radiation, as she used to spend most of her time in the laboratory doing research. So Mary was buried beside Perry in the cemetery at ICSE, in the presence of her family, friends, co-workers, and students who loved her. Now ICSE is actually a territorial region in the southern suburban area of Paris, and she was buried just beside her husband in ICSE. and like in the presence of her family members, friends, co-workers, the people who used to work with her, and the students who loved her. So this was Mary's life, and when we see this throughout her life, she was passionate and dedicated towards the scientific research, and this shows that how full of passion and dedication and enthusiasm personality Marie Curie was, and how she dedicated her whole life in researching and doing researches and giving something to this modern science, which is seen to be, or which is considered to be, one of the most important discovery till date. So students, the title of the chapter, Marie Curie, A Radiant Life, stands true, and it actually justifies with the content that is given in the chapter, as we saw that how radiant Mary was and how she spread happiness with her work and her achievement all around. So radiant actually means something that emits light or radiation, and surprisingly we can say that Mary did a research work in radioactivity and radiation, and radiant also means someone who spreads happiness, being there, being around. So this is true, as Marie Curie was someone with a very radiant personality who spread happiness all around. So yes, the title of the chapter is justified. So students, here we complete this chapter, and if you remember at the beginning of the chapter we saw a quote, or in your textbook also on page number 33 there is a quote by Marie Curie, that I was taught that the way of progress was neither swift nor easy, and I told you that once we'll complete the chapter you will come to know that how true this quote is, especially for Marie Curie. So see how throughout her life she struggled hard, she went through all the difficulties and hardships, and she slowly took each step and moved ahead and achieved great achievements in her life. So this is how we should be, and this is really very inspirational chapter, and you can learn a lot of things from Mary, and we can learn that how dedicated she was. She was so inspiring, how hard she tried to reach the place where she was, and how hard she tried to get all those achievements. Students, it's not at all easy to win a Nobel Prize, and that too for 2 subjects. It is really a great achievement. And we also saw that how she struggled in her early days, and she almost survived on bread and butter, and because of which she went on becoming physically weak, and then she lived a very simple life. She did not own any luxurious flat, and apart from that she did not took anybody's help. So this also shows that how independent she was, and how self-made woman she was. So this is really an inspiring chapter for all of us, and we should really try to take this inspiring lesson from Marie Curie's life. That's it for today, and we will discuss the questions that are given on page number 37 in our next lecture.